Being a gardener is a perfect blend of working with people that share the same values and interests and creating something slightly different each year with nature and with seasons. The changing climate and the extremes of temperature that we're experiencing mean that the garden in some ways is under threat, but also in some ways it's an opportunity to rethink and recreate and consider ways of running the garden much more sustainably. This is Ham House Garden Meadow, and we're right by the River Thames, just below those trees. One of the things we've noticed in the last 5 years is that the flooding is taking place at different times to different extents because of climate change. These plane trees are getting used to a changing climate as well. They've already got a disease which arguably they're more susceptible to, and now we're managing them in periods of spring drought and intense summer heat. So thinking about the future, 30, 50, 100 years out, if I was looking to re-establish this avenue, I'd be considering different tree species and looking at what's advised in terms of their ability to adapt to the climate that we can now reasonably predict. We were thinking about this space, which was just grass squares. We wanted to cultivate it for the long term, so we looked at the type of species that would thrive in a changing climate, and apples are one of those species. With climate change in mind, we considered local varieties and also included some modern ones. We wanted to have a rich, diverse mix, but also consider the trees that might cope better. And some of these modern varieties have a stronger resistance to certain diseases. What you can see here is the biggest intervention in the garden since the recreation began by the National Trust in 1975. It's really a response to what people seek in gardens today and to how we need to manage sustainably in the context of climate change. It's partly about encouraging our visitors to wander through things, enjoy meadows, but also to take note of different types of planting and different use of plants. So all these plants here, they're in their first few months of being in this soil, are period to 1680s, as is the rest of the formal garden, but all of them will thrive in very dry conditions. On the ground, you'll see quite an odd looking mulch. On closer inspection, it's a mixture of what we shred and chip from woody waste, but also the National Trust compostable coffee cups. And the interesting thing about doing this, the soil will retain more moisture and it also suppresses the weeds. One of the things that we wanted to do was give visitors space to just sit and enjoy and feel like Ham House Garden was their garden. But we need to give them space to sit in shade or in comfortable temperatures. These benches we move according to how hot it is. Today it's quite cool, so they're south facing. If the weather gets hotter, we'll move them and they'll go over that side, which is north facing, and they'll stay there until the temperatures dip again. Really simple thing, but we've noticed that if the temperature gets too hot over here, no one enjoys the garden quite so much sitting on these benches. One of the things we do is to make sure that we're only using the water we've harvested on site, and it's one of the things we're most proud of when it's been a really, really hot summer. We're really very fortunate that an irrigation system was put into the property in Victorian times. It takes rainfall from the house, guttering, brings it down to 2 enormous water chambers that store the water. I inherited a pump system that takes it out and irrigates the garden. It would be easy to feel overwhelmed by what we know about climate change, and I've found it much better to think about how we can respond, to look at each thing that we change that might contribute as being a positive step in the right direction.